Street. That's good.
That's good.
Speed bump photos. We just put one here.
Do what?
Dark.
Big race.
We just, yeah. There's animals, big as they're going there. The speed limit sign.
That's gonna be some.
Okay, guys, I think it's close enough, or maybe just a little bit after 6 o'clock. I'll call our March 26th Town Council regular meeting to order. And I'll move on to the calendar. I'll remind everybody that the town offices will be closed this Friday, Good Friday. And then our next board meeting will be Tuesday, April the 9th. So that's pretty much all I have for the calendar. Okay, I'll move on to public comment. And we have one person here tonight. I'll just give out the rules. The rules are you're given 3 minutes, and the town attorney will keep track of those 3 minutes. So the first person up is Chris Scott.
Good. So I live down the hill at 230 East Street, and just last week there was another car accident at the corner of South Hill Street and East Street. And so I live at the bottom of both the hills that come from east and west. So I've given you some. Sorry, I didn't bring enough, but my first thing I'd like to propose is extending the sidewalks on the first page. There's a sidewalk that ends at Shelton Creek on my side of the street, and I'd like to make a proposal to extend that for what I'll talk about as my second reason. So that we can, instead of crossing the street when we walk up to Main Street, we can just turn and go up the sidewalk. It seems like a safety situation because of the fact that we've had 2 major accidents within the past 3 or 4 months. If you'll skip to the pictures I have, this picture right here, the third page, is the picture from my front doorstep. And just last week, we had another collision right at that intersection. A person ran the stop sign on South Hill Street. And this is the picture of the car that was supposed to be going 20 miles an hour on that. And it was definitely totaled. And then the last picture is a car that flipped. This is about October. And this car flipped into the street into the property across from my house. So I have a concern because I have a dog and a child, and if this had a flip and could have possibly gone into my house. So I drive that street every day, and I know it's impossible to go 20 miles an hour. And I thank you for the speed bumps at the top of the hill. And so my second page is where I kind of think that some speed bumps should go, at least for people going down the hill, so that they can't go 40, 50 miles an hour and then gas it going back up the hill. Or a raised median in the middle there, because for some reason people run that stop sign on South Hill Street. Mm-hmm. So it's very concerning to me, and this is the first time that I've come to the council for it. And I know that this is a topic, and it's a safety, or because of ambulances and fire trucks to get there. But I think what's going to happen is it's just going to get progressively worse. So I ask that we do something about it, either put speed bumps. I have to shift the car into second gear to go down the hill right from here just to get to my house. And other people don't do that, and they're not conscientious of it. So I have people going 40 miles an hour, down my house. So, and then the sidewalk would just be you know, I have spoken to my neighbor, and they said that they also would approve it if not. So it's pretty much just my house and then my neighbor's house where that would have to go to. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll move on to additions or deletions to the agenda. Are there any changes to our agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to point out that the public hearing for Longview subdivision conditional map amendment is on the consent agenda to be canceled for this evening and will be moved to April the 23rd. That's the Longview subdivision. And I would also like to make a motion to move item F6, which is the public hearing, to item 3.
Okay,
Second.
okay, got a motion, second by John, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, move to
And I think there's one more addition.
Didn't you want to add an item to the agenda, or is it already on the?
It is not. I think you wanted to add,
Well,
correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I could add one item to I'll make a motion that we add one item to the agenda. It's just a very quick report on the grant we just received from the Department of Energy.
I'll second that.
got a motion,
And a second.
second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And then the appointments to the Board of Zoning Adjustment.
Yes, that is correct. Where's that at? I'd like to add.
Is
item
it already
10.
on the agenda?
It's already on
I'm
the,
sorry.
Okay.
Okay, never mind.
I thought it was already.
Yeah.
Okay, we move on to consent agenda. We had to approve that as amended, so we didn't want to like to make the motion that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
so moved, Mayor.
So a motion,
Second.
second, Chuck, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So like sign. Okay. All right, we're gonna move, what number was that?
Number 6, Mayor.
Number what?
Number 6.
Okay, we're gonna move that public hearing up. And so, I'll also give the instructions on that. It'll also, first, let's go ahead and have the public. Someone needs to give me a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open public hearing, Mayor.
Got a motion?
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Ms. Oakley?
Good evening, Olga Gruman, Land Use Administrator. This is a public hearing to consider a conditional zoning map amendment for a 13-unit subdivision off Greenview. Portions of the two parcels, I'll read the pins for the record, 8614-271901, 8614-277912. Right up to the cover page, you do have a planning board report with a summary of conditions that they propose to adopt this subdivision conditional district. There are 7 conditions, and the planning board did find that with the goals of 2035 comprehensive plan. We will sum up the conditions at the end. The 10.99 acre portion of the Waynesville Inn and Golf Club of Green Drive is a proposed subdivision of 13 single-family homes. The area is within Waynesville Inn and Golf Country Club's property and within Waynesville ETJ. The applicant is requesting a conditional district in order to develop the property on 13 individual lots. And as the application states, with the balance of the development areas to remain in the private common area attached master plan. The project is seeking flexibility in lot width, pedestrian facilities, civic space, alternative landscape plan, and driveway standards. Requests are described below in red and blue below the map. Conditional districts are a legislative procedure where the planning board serves as a recommending body. And they can recommend certain conditions or leniencies for this plan specific. The council may attach these conditions or may recommend their own conditions. These conditions would relax zoning requirements only for this project and this property. WGC Hospitality gave permission to Patrick Bradshaw Emily Clark and Dave Braun to represent the project and appear before the board. They're right here behind me, and they will be presenting as well. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting on February 19th as required for the project size. We do have the summary of reviewing. The project first met with the town technical committee back in November 2022, and then again in January, and submitted the application February 6, 2024. In the Mountaineer newspaper, your first class mail, and the property letter. The subdivision of 13 residential units is proposed in this 10.99 acre portion of the property on Greenview. Single family dwelling permitted outright. The applicant provided the application, environmental survey, and master plan required for conditional district. The country club residential low density district has its following purpose from land development standards. It is an area predominantly comprised of large lot subdivisions with the Waynesville Country Club serving as its social and recreational center. While single-family homes are the dominant residential use in this area, townhouses and accessory apartments. Connections to the South Main Street Business District should be enhanced as new developments take place. A residential scale is required for all new development. Tree preservation and proliferation along South Main Street corridor is critical to the ambience of the area. The district has the following dimensional requirements. The base density is 6 units per acre and up to 12 units per acre with a special use permit. The project proposes 13 units on 10.99 acres, and it is within the base density by right. The minimum lot size for the district is half an acre. All the lot sizes proposed are compliant. The lots range from half an acre to 0.93 acres. The minimum lot width for this district is 60 feet. We measure the lot width at the front of the house. The developer is asking for leniency in his application, but all the lots are compliant as shown on the proposed plan. The project is also compliant with the setbacks of the district. The free side and rear 20 feet, from adjacent lot 10 feet, minimum between buildings 10 feet. Minimum required surface on site is 20%. The project is 10.99 acre portion of a 102 acre property, so it is compliant. Maximum building height in this district is 3 stories. Basic lot standards. The lots would face the internal lane. So by land development standards allow the houses to be facing internal driveways or the streets. So it is compliant. Maximum height in low density district is 60 feet. A story is no more than 14 feet in height. There are no building elevations provided, so clarification would be needed from the developer. Although, again, the applicant is asking for design flexibility for a conditional district, land development standards, section 5.8.1 states that house types on lots wider than 50 feet do not require design review. So we would not request them anyway, but it's up to the council to decide. Infrastructure. The plan indicates the location of proposed water and sewer lines. We do have an attached letter by the Public Services Director and the memo from NCDOQ. We can provide sewer and water services facilities to the property. The project will connect to Greenview Drive. We have proposed 20 feet driveway. As one of the conditions, fire marshal and building inspections requested that the proposed lane to be wider, the fire hydrant locations beside lots 4, 5, and 11 for fire access and so. The developer is asking for a leniency from our lane standards. Generally, a lane is a 20-foot wide, up to 800 feet long street. The developer is asking for leniency to make it longer. As for pedestrian facilities, the developer is asking for a payment in lieu instead of sidewalk. If the staff submits that payment in lieu would be appropriate for this, because if the sidewalk goes along the lane, which is the main frontage of the house, within the neighborhood, it wouldn't serve the public purposes to go, because it would go to this neighborhood and somebody would have to go just for a walk there, and it's not going to be connected to anything. So as one of the conditions, the staff would be asking for payment in lieu for a sidewalk with the condition that we would get an easement somewhere in the neighborhood to construct the sidewalk using this payment in lieu. Specifically, the staff is thinking for a sidewalk that starts in the red line of the intersection Country Club and Nineveh, because that's where the sidewalk from the cottages more or less ends. And then there is one of the main buildings for the country club. The sidewalk ends there too. We would like to continue the sidewalk there. It would go all the way up throughout the long view. That would be a more reasonable connection, if you will.
So you're asking for the payment in lieu of would be used to construct the sidewalk there?
That would be preferred, or we would go payment in lieu with the condition of an easement somewhere in the impacted neighborhood so we can fill some gaps for a 5-feet sidewalk that would be required. That is strongly preferred by the staff. So if we start off Nineveh Road, there are duplexes being constructed, they build a sidewalk. And then shortly after, the cottages, country club cottages, they have a sidewalk. And then the main building, right where the red line starts, has a sidewalk. We feel it's more reasonable, and we did hear quite a bit of concerns on both Street Longview and Greenview, but that would be a continuation of sidewalk. It wouldn't be disconnected, if you will, and it would be the benefit to the public. Yeah.
Yes, I have one question, and
Yes.
I usually wait till you end.
That's okay.
But the one was the 800 feet long for a lane. How long will this lane be if we grant the variance?
They're asking for leniency. We don't know specifically, what would that be? So I would let developer to elaborate on possible length. It has been reviewed by the building inspections and the fire marshal, and the only thing they are asking is to expand it for emergency vehicle access.
Are we talking 850 or 900? So
Right.
I'll ask the developer.
Right.
Thanks.
Okay. Civic space. The developer is asking leniency for civic space. They would be required to give 5% of the civic space for subdivision of 114 lots. In the application, the developer states that being part of the historic Waynesville Country Club property and parent tract, the specific proposed conditional district area, even upon further subdivision, would continue to retain the same privileges afforded to the parent tract with respect to Golf Course Country Club. Both the staff and the planning board find this request appropriate because they have dozens and hundreds of acres on both sides of the country club. They would be required to give just over half an acre of the civic space, and one of the options is a green space. So that is already there, and people would be enjoying the country club. So we find it appropriate. As for landscaping, the developer is asking for a leniency to create a custom landscape plan. They do show a conceptual plan with the street trees and trees within the neighborhood. The ordinance allows to consider alternative landscaping plans where in reasonable and practical situations would result. Situations include, but not limited to, lot configurations, topography, utility easements, or other site conditions. Parking and driveways, the developer is asking for leniency. The minimum distance between the driveways is 40 feet. Each driveway would connect to the lane within the neighborhood. It would not connect to the Greenview Drive. The proposal has been reviewed by building inspection and fire marshals, and no comments on that. No lighting or signage are proposed. The developer submitted environmental survey which includes current conditions, grassy area, part of golf course. The property is not in the floodplain. There are no jurisdictional wetlands. Developer submitted soil classification, a mix of well-drained soils, proposed erosion measures, silt fences, sediment basins, temporary diversion ditches. Because the project will disturb more than an acre, they would seek the erosion permit through the NCDEQ, and we would require a copy. The plan shows conceptual post-construction stormwater conveyance system pipes. In the application materials, we do have a statement by the project engineer with a short stormwater narrative. They would be using the existing pond to treat the development, and because they're removing some golf cart paths, they would be actually decreasing the impervious surface. Staff submits that the conditional district request is consistent with the comprehensive plan goals 1 and 2 to continue to promote smart growth principles in land use planning and zoning, to create a range of housing opportunities and choices. On the comprehensive long vision map, the property is designated as residential, low to medium density, is on the south side in yellow. And the motions for consideration is for the council to find and not to find the proposed conditional district to be consistent with the comprehensive land use plan, and to approve, deny, or approve with conditions as conditional district map amendment. I know it has been a lot of information, and I would like to go over the summary of requests as specified by the planning board. In your agenda packet, you do also have 2 work pages, if you will, where you can keep track of the requests you are to come up with new ones. So the planning board recommends the following conditions. Lot width standards for country club residential district shall not apply. Again, as shown, the developer is compliant. Maybe it's as a contingency plan. LDS standards for the proposed lane within the subdivision shall not apply. At both fire hydrant locations, however, the proposed lane needs to be at least 26 feet wide. The plan needs to be adjusted prior to the issuance of. The developer will pay payment in lieu for sidewalk construction with specific requests for the staff to provide us easement within the impacted neighborhood for us to construct it there. Civic space requirements shall not apply as the project claims credit for the existing amenities. Landscape requirements of the LDS Chapter 8 shall not apply as the project will propose custom landscaping plan. And minimum spacing requirements between the driveways shall not apply. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I also have development team here to present.
Any questions? I have no additional questions from Olga. I will from the applicant, but not from Olga.
Do you have any further questions?
Let me ask one clarification.
Okay.
I want to get back to that payment in lieu of, and you indicated an easement within the neighborhood, but have presented us with a pretty neat little location. And is that staff's recommendation? And if so, can we go ahead and make that the condition as opposed to just an easement somewhere in the neighborhood?
Yes, sir. The first question, yes, it is staff's recommendation. Second, yes, you are the final deciding body for that to be a condition.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Chuck? No. Okay. Applicant would like to present.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Patrick Bradshaw with Civil Design Concepts. Need to state address. 52, okay.
No more.
Again, Olga, thank you for your presentation. I'm here on behalf not only of our firm, but also the Raines Company. Waynesville Inn and Golf Club to present the conditional district. I'm going to put up this page. Well, there's an illustrative plan that shows some kind of the rendering and landscape and so forth. This is the actual proposed conditional district plan. Just kind of not mix and mingle the two. We share the illustrative plan for a number of reasons to give it some scale and dimension. None of those houses are foregone conclusions, if you will. They're just representative of house types, that certain lots could accommodate, so forth like that. So again, know that that is largely illustrative in nature, still to the same scale and representation, but this is in fact the plan that we have presented for our conditional district approval. As Olga mentioned, we did hold a neighborhood meeting for this project on February 19th. It was held at Waynesville Inn and Golf Club. We sent out approximately 120 invitations across 2 developments, with this being one of them, but both being in the same area. Found that beneficial to have a broader discussion. I believe a copy of those sign-in sheets and comments have been included, as I heard Olga mention, in your agenda package. As you've heard me say before a number of times, I will not restate each and everything that Ms. Grumman has so eloquently provided here, as our staff is inherently difficult to follow. Councilman Sutton, to your question, the lane length is about 950 feet, so just under 1,000 there.
Where I was going when you said 1,000.
What's that?
You knew I would have objections if it was over 1,000 feet, so thank you.
So, yeah, and really, the impetus behind that is as those road facilities as described in the LDS grow section to section, land disturbance grows because the facility gets wider. We felt like, because this is a road that is not a through road, if you will, but is in fact served by a cul-de-sac, that was not inappropriate. And we discussed that with the fire officials, building safety, and they agreed with that in our initial TRC. I think one piece of, and these are not necessarily, say, prepared or scripted remarks, but just to give some color and context to where we are. I think everyone here knows and have followed closely probably Waynesville Country Club as we formerly knew it, and now reinvented as Waynesville Inn and Golf Club. The condition that it had become, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, from what we may have known it as in the 80s, 90s, and maybe at or around the turn of the century. I don't have that exact timeline. But when the Raines Company identified this property, the first thing they loved was Waynesville. And they'll tell you that. Our planning board heard it. They've heard it, they've had representatives at neighborhood meetings. Both their managing partners have been in different parts of these forums as we've moved along. So like I say, the first thing that they fell in love with was Waynesville. They think the town is an absolute gem. They love it. They love Waynesville for a number of the same reasons that a lot of other people love Waynesville. Prior to that, their previous development investment in Western North Carolina was in Asheville, at the Foundry Hotel, where they did a very unique property there that I won't spend much time with. But if you've ever visited the Foundry and you see this adaptive reuse of an old steel foundry into a hotel, it's quite remarkable. So I would just encourage you, if you're ever in downtown, stick your head in the door at the Foundry. It's a great place. But I think they walked into this project with the potential for that same vision of a property that had, at or approaching, Waynesville Inn and Golf Club will celebrate its 100th birthday in 2 more years. So it's when Donald Gross first, wandered out onto a cattle farm, and on the back of a napkin basically sketched out the original 9-hole layout. That was in 1926. A couple years later, they converted a barn into the Golf Pros facilities and these kind of things, and then the evolution of, here came, I can't remember the old names of the facilities, Emily, Lodge Crest, but the 2 buildings that were the primary lodging on the property. And I think it was in the mid-80s when the tower piece, as you might know it when you pull up, was constructed. And the property has just thrived for so many years until it didn't. There was many reports of financial distress and other things that are, we don't need to belabor those points, but I think everybody saw both aesthetically and the level of service that was being delivered was not what folks had been accustomed to, nor was it a representation of what, Waynesville hoped to deliver, I think, with that as an amenity. So that said, Raines has taken, about a $9 million investment just in the land and improvements and put in excess of $20 million on top of that, including redevelopment of the entire golf course. There's not a space on the property that has not been remodeled, renovated, some of it to the level of gut renovation, some of it more just interior finishes. Some of the newer hotels just needed kind of a room refresh. The two most historic inns that are tied together by the tower were completely gut renovation from plumbing, electrical, mechanical systems down top to bottom. Still doing a little work in one of the restaurant facilities, but I would just encourage you, if you've not had the opportunity to go there today, that certainly we would invite you to do that and just see the extent. With that said, and in that kind of spin, there's a plan that was circulated very early on as part of this that spoke to the need for not only would there be renovated rooms, but the cottages, which this board approved as a conditional district, a total of 8 cottages that are on Chelsea, front Chelsea, in effect. 3 of those have been delivered. The slab's in place for the 4th. So, they're just gaining momentum. One other thing to note, most recently, as of January 1, the property is now soft branded through Hilton. So they have seen a big uptick in, interest, reservations, and all of those things. That's a brand that largely west of Asheville is not present. So we're very excited, I think, to have a Hilton soft brand in our town, and should bring many visitors in the days to come. So with that said, just to give you some backstory, many of you know it, but just to give you a sense, so all of these things, whether it be conventional hotel rooms, the cottages, which are more of a long-term stay, you could assemble a family there. Those are 4-bedroom, 4-bath, master suites in all of them. So if you want to have a family gathering, something like that, that would be an appropriate space for that. But also supported by some pockets of development around the property. So, and this is a story that we've continued to tell just prior to purchase of the property. Smoky Mountain News did an article on that, and Corey touched on that just within the last week or so. Like I say, I think hopefully all of you have had the opportunity to at least see the cottages as delivered. And you'll hear from Emily Clark, project architect, in just a bit. But I think you would notice that those homes because those are individually owned properties, but they just have the ability to rent back through the club. That kind of sets the base or the floor for what these proposed subdivision homes would be. The developer, that being Waynesville Golf Club, will not build these houses as proposed. They're proposing to subdivide the lots, and then those would be sold to individuals. So John and Mary could build their house, and Sam could build his, and Sally could build hers. But there will be very stringent, which you'll hear from Emily in just a bit, about what that process would look like. Material considerations well above and beyond what, as Olga mentioned, with us meeting a certain lot threshold and standard, there really are no specific requirements in our LDS, but Waynesville Golf Club will have very, very stringent conditions associated with the development of homes. I think that is, traffic, just to speak to it, 13 lots is not, doesn't meet our threshold.
The applicant has exhausted the 10 minutes typically allotted in our rules. Is there a motion to
I'll make a motion to extend that time.
Second.
Got a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for that allowance, and I will be expeditious in wrapping my piece up and let you hear from Emily. Yeah, just wanted to note that 13 lots as proposed on Greenview is well below any threshold that would be indicative of a TIA. In terms of the civic space, so to understand, golf courses are specifically noted as allowable to serve as civic space within our standards. Tied as a deed restriction, if you own a lot here in this proposed development, you so too shall be a member of the Waynesville Golf Club. So in addition to golf, there's a swimming pool, there's fitness and workout areas and those things. So that is the consideration that we're asking for there. It's not the idea. We have some residual land area, but we just didn't feel like that was, it's immediately adjacent to the subdivision, but it just didn't make a great deal of sense to employ that. Driveways, we have just a couple of driveways that don't meet. So most every driveway will meet the standard. We just have a couple out at the end where we've run some flag lots out. Those are indicated more so on the illustrative drawing that you saw, and how we see those laying out. Before I step away and turn it over to Emily, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Yes, you have any further
I
questions?
do not.
John?
The only thing I'm interested in is the height requirements. Is that a question for Emily?
I think it is probably most appropriate. Yes.
Okay. Julie?
No, sir.
Chuck?
Some of the residents had questions about water pressure at the meeting that you had. Do you have any comments on that?
No, I live at an elevation higher than these, just beyond the old farmer property, going into the sanctuary, and we don't have water pressure issues there. I do recall, Chuck, that question at the neighborhood meeting, but we don't have any individual awareness of water pressure issues. And like I say, I just draw from my own accounting as I live within probably about 500, 600 yards, I would imagine.
Let me ask it this way.
Yes,
If
sir.
the home, if some of the homes above Greenview have poor pressure, would this development have any effect on their water pressure?
My sense would be, I think it is unlikely, as residential facilities are just not large water users. In fact, our own state legislature has taken the allowable, how much water we assign or invariably wastewater, and brought that down from 120 gallons a bedroom to 75 gallons a bedroom per day. And those uses come, we're all familiar with them. We wash our hands, we do laundry. And I also think there's a high probability that a number of these homes could likely be second homes. I have no guarantee of that, but I think it is very possible. So the intermittent nature of their usage, but understanding, I don't know if that's an individual issue, maybe on some of the older infrastructure that lays back in, along Klein and Brunswick and some of those streets. That's certainly a possibility. But when you look at the prevailing pressure zone that's driven by Allen's Creek and the reservoir and the tank, and where 2,900, that's part of our ideology around where the 2,900 number comes from. It's not only where the land gets steeper, but it's also our, a good line of demarcation for where our prevailing water pressure can be delivered to. Like I say, I don't know that specific issue, but I would have doubts, that one would be contributed.
Right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Emily, you like?
Good evening, Mayor Caldwell,
Have a council member, councilman.
Emily Clark, Planning Architects. I'm going to speak to architectural guidelines. As we are developing, currently our firm is currently working with Waynesville Golf Club, the development team, to construct those guidelines. So the community we're speaking of here is Greenview. This architectural guidelines will cover both any development done on the property going forward. As Patrick mentioned, these are the restricted architectural guidelines. They've been developed to establish a high standard with design within the community of individual residents. As the architectural guidelines are established, it is our intent to build on the architectural traditions of Western North Carolina and to respect the surrounding neighborhoods and sites. The emphasis for building is placed on the quality of site work, architectural design, and construction materials and landscaping of each individual home sites. The architectural guidelines do not dictate a particular architectural style, but provide owners and their design teams with a set of guidelines that will foster hopefully some creativity and a framework sensitive to the existing neighborhoods. Again, these guidelines include, but are not limited to style, size, materials, colors. And Patrick mentioned this, but as we speak to the architectural guidelines, referencing the completed cottages as an example of the minimum level of finishes and design expectations that we plan to, that we expect to be designed and that we plan to approve. And that's just part of their commitment to enhancing the $30 million investment that the Inn and Golf Club have already established, and we feel like that begins at the cottages and expands throughout the development. So again, it is not our intent to dictate a certain architectural style. However, there are styles that we consider preferable and that are indicative of Western North Carolina. And some examples of those are Craftsman, some bungalows, ranch style, Tudor, contemporaries, farmhouse. All of these are examples of compatible styles that we plan to approve. But architectural style is only one component of the architectural guidelines. Siding, the forms, detailing, and materials will also be considered. So when I reference siding, that's appropriate placement of any structure on the property, whether that's house, detached garage, so forth and so on, and proper integration of the grounds, driveways, parking, and yards. And attention should be also given to adjacent properties. Then forms, appropriate roof pitches corresponding with this owner's selected architectural style, height and profile of the adjacent structures must reflect a lot of the structures must reflect the lot setting. And you spoke to height. The average height we're proposing is 35 feet and that typically just kind of depends on how the lot lays, but it's typically an average of your lowest level and your ground level, kind of how we average that out. But 35 feet is what we are proposing. And massing should be scaled to the site and respond to the surroundings. Detailing should be consistent with the chosen architectural style. And then materials, this is exterior materials appropriate to the community are as follows: wood siding, composite siding, which could be hardy or any of the cementitious products that are readily available. Stone veneer, natural stone is recommended and preferred. However, synthetic stone may be approved on a case-by-case basis. Brick is prevalent in the community and that is also approved. No vinyl or PVC exterior materials are allowed. Colors, we will also be, each homeowner will have to do a sample board of proposed colors as well as materials. And so we would like to see those relate to the environment, medium to darker shades of earth tones and greens and browns and grays. However, white exterior finishes are allowed, as white is traditionally seen in the surrounding neighborhoods as well as in a farmhouse style. So those are very indicative of local architectural styles. So any and all new or future renovations and additions will be reviewed by the Architectural Review Committee. The committee is comprised of 5 members, design professionals, and members of the development management team. Each project that is submitted will go through a 4-part review process. The first review process is what we're calling the sketch plan and a site visit. So we want to see some sketched idea of the plan, and the owner and design team, and then a representative from the review committee would be on site, and that would be the first. Then preliminary design would be the second submittal. And once then that would go to final design. Once final design, then they're free to start construction, obviously once they building permit from the town of Waynesville. And then the last submittal would be a landscape plan. And then speaking to the construction end of things, contractors must be approved by the review committee as well. There is not a planned list of preferred